Hi everyone, Taylor from Doom to Fail here. Today we are re-releasing episode 3, part 2 on the infamous Todt family murders. So these murders, it's a family annihilator. That's one person who, spoiler, kills their entire family. This time it happens in the happiest place on earth, which is Disney World, which I disagree with, but more on that in the episode. Next to Disney World, if you didn't know, there's a town called Celebration, Florida, that's like made by Disney to be a perfect little town. The Tote family came from Connecticut to escape some criminal charges, honestly, and then they rented a house in Celebration, and the poor woman they rented it to had no idea what was about to happen. So yeah, let us know what you think. Here is episode 3, part 2, The Toad Family.
In the matter of the people of the state of California versus Orenthal James Simpson, case number BA096.
And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
Digesting your story a little bit, but I'll go ahead and dive in. So, like I mentioned, I am discussing the Todt family. Todt is spelled T-O-D-T, just in case you ever want to look it up yourself.
Do you know what that means in German?
No.
Dead.
Are you serious?
Mm-hmm. Todt.
Why do you know that?
Means dead. Because I took like 8 years of German.
You know what's funny? I took Russian, and I don't know any of it now.
I'm pretty far in Duolingo, but I also took it in college, and so,
Yeah, I took it in college too, and I was like, I'm in Texas. I probably should learn Spanish, but I know I learned Russian. So let's get into the Todt family. So obviously, Taylor, I love true crime. I like to think that I'm aware of the more sensational stories that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
This one wasn't even on my radar.
Yeah, I've never heard it, and I'm really surprised because I feel like I've heard everything, so that's cool.
So I'm gonna plug a few other shows here. I stumbled on this story mostly because YouTube's algorithm just totally has me dialed in, and they recommended a channel for me called the Behavior Panel. This is a channel that is comprised of 4 body language experts who review police interviews or testimony on the witness stand. They'll pause these conversations, they'll pause these videos, and they'll assess what they're reading into that person's body language. Okay, that's the entire premise of this YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
YouTube recommended a episode of this to me called "History's Worst Liar?" Anthony Todt, with a picture of Tony. I'm going to call him Tony from here on out. That's how people refer to him, so I'm going to call him Tony. And it was a picture of Tony, and he just looked like a haunted doofus. Like, he just looked like such an idiot on this screenshot that I was like, this could be interesting. He's so hapless looking. Let's see what this guy's all about. I went down a rabbit hole. I actually think I probably scared people how deep into this I went. I would tell everyone I met about this case for a period of maybe 2 months. Like, I am positive there are women in Austin that I went on dates with, had me on their list of worst dates ever. They're probably telling their current boyfriends of this date where I'm talking about this horrible haunted crime that is just like in my brain forever now.
I can't wait. I will look around on the internet to see if there's anyone who's like, watch out for the guy who talks about this scary thing.
Yeah. Sorry to y'all if y'all are listening. Going back to this. So this story is so macabre and sinister. The one thing I would tell people listening is don't try to go inside this guy's head. So much of what I love about true crime is trying to figure out, like, how could someone be this way? How could they do this? How could, like, what are the thought patterns that would lead someone to the outcomes that we see in true crime? Don't do it with this guy. It'll take you places that you don't want to go. Just trust me. Like, I went really deep with this, and I just don't want to do it again. But yeah, if you really want to go in the weeds on this, there is a 14-part series called Looking for the Todt Family. It's produced by this publication called The Day.
Mhm.
I highly recommend it. It was incredible. I actually listened to it twice back to back. I actually didn't go back and listen to it when we started researching this because it was already ingrained in my brain, like I said before. But
Faris,
go ahead.
are you okay? Do you need
Yeah,
anything?
yeah, no, I'm totally fine. Again,
Okay.
like in this, when I started researching this again, I didn't go as deep as I did before because I just didn't want to. But I highly recommend the day. It's publication. They actually interviewed this guy. They interview his sister. They did an incredible job of a completely comprehensive take on what happened here.
Okay.
So let's get into the subjects of this topic. So there's Tony Todt. He's 47. He's
Okay.
the patriarch of the family. He is
Okay.
married to Megan, who's 42, was 42. They
Okay.
had three children: Alec, who's 13, Tyler, who's 11, Zoe, who's 4, and they also had a dog named Breezy. I'm using past tense for a reason.
I heard that.
Um,
Tell me what year we're in?
we everything transpires in 2019 or 2020.
Oh, Jesus. Okay.
Yeah, fairly recent.
It's like
So
yesterday. Yeah, okay.
yeah, exactly. Um, there isn't a ton of detail out there about Megan and Tony's past. All we know is they were high school sweethearts. They grew up together. By all accounts, it was kind of an idyllic marriage. It looked like a successful, happy marriage from the outside in. And that's unfortunately where the extent of our knowledge of their background is. There is a detail about Tony's background I'm going to go into a little bit later. I just don't actually know where to couch that in this outline, so we're going to discuss it later on. One thing to note is Megan had Lyme disease.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know much about Lyme disease, other than from the stories I've heard, it can be an incredibly debilitating disease. Do you know
Yeah.
anything about this?
It comes from ticks, right?
Yes, you typically get it from a tick.
Yeah, and I feel like well, I remember, do you remember the real world Seattle? And
Definitely not.
okay,
That
well,
is not something that's going to the hard drive forever.
there's a real world Seattle. Oh my gosh, it was so dramatic. It was like 1993 maybe. And but I remember one of the women had Lyme disease and it was really debilitating for her. And I know people who like I think I know people who have it, and it's definitely something that is really difficult to recover from.
Yeah,
So don't
yeah.
go in the woods and get eaten by a tick.
Well, I don't know if it has psychological impacts, but I put it in this because there's a part of this story that comes up a little bit later that might make it relevant that she had Lyme disease. We'll get to that. For for Tony's part, Tony was a physical therapist in Colchester, Connecticut. He was apparently pretty successful and good at it, enough to at least to start his own clinic that was called Family Physical Therapy. From what I read of his patients, they were incredibly pleased with him. And again, if you listen to the Day podcast, there's so many glowing interviews of his
Hmm.
patients that are in that. It's fantastic. Um,
Like
it-
after?
yeah, yeah,
Okay.
like yeah.
I mean,
This
I
is
don't
all
even know what
after
happens, but I'm saying like after. They're like, but who's your
they
doctor?
they went back and interviewed some of the patients, and like this guy, like one lady was like crying, saying that her kid was in constant pain, and Tony's therapy like just saved them
Wow.
both. Yeah, like he was apparently really good at this. Um, but we're gonna have appetizers, okay? An
Okay.
appetizer of a crime. So we're gonna start with a starter crime just to get the ball rolling here.
Okay. I
So
immediately you said that I said mozzarella sticks in my head. So
I thought
and
about jalapeno poppers.
nice. Ooh, we should get one of those things that has a little bit of everything.
I think I know what we're doing after this. So as a starter crime to kind of whet our appetite, Tony was apparently engaged in Medicaid fraud from about
Mm.
2015 to 2019. So Tony, this is going to be a theme here. Tony would overextend himself constantly, and he did it with his clinic as well. He had the best of the best equipment. In one instance, he ended up billing a patient's insurance company and Medicaid for 172 sessions that he didn't perform. So that's basically like that's how this fraud works. Is you say I did a service, you issue an invoice, you get paid for it, you didn't actually do anything. So, in addition to that, he had multiple commercial loans that he had taken out. It kind of sounds like he was running a Ponzi scheme on himself, where he'd take a loan out to pay
Mhm.
expenses in other loans, then take another loan to pay that loan. He was just Bernie Madoffing himself at this point. Like it made no sense. Like I don't even understand how desperate one could be where you don't see the writing on the wall if you continue doing this, but he did it.
I feel like this is a theme that we see a lot is like not knowing what to do with all your debt. Like the Turpins had all that credit card debt, and even like the people of Jamestown had so much debt back to England that they had to start doing kind of like weird shit to figure out how to get stuff that they needed.
We don't know how much that Lucy was in, so we can't substantiate that.
Lucy McGillicuddy.
Yes, of course. So it's worth noting that Megan was not involved in operations of the business at all. She sometimes worked as a physical therapist. For the most part, she was just homeschooling the kids. It's fair to assume she had no idea what was going on financially. And as far as she was concerned, she was with this great provider in Tony, who was basically taking care of everything. And again, as far as we can tell, um, everybody liked and respected him. So why would she dive
Right.
into it? But I actually flagged this as red flag number one for me, which is be okay with inquiring into your spouse about what's going on with them professionally.
Hmm.
I feel like maybe like this family was incredibly traditional, where the wife stays at home with the kids and homeschools, and the husband goes out and earns the bread and does all that, which is fine.
Hmm.
But you should also have the kind of relationship where it's okay to bring the negative and the stressors of your professional life into your personal life. And so I don't, it doesn't sound like that was the case here. It sounds like there was a clear silo between Tony's professional life and his personal life,
Hmm.
which I can't even imagine how much tension that puts on a person. I mean, we'll see how it turns out, but yeah. Um, so keep in mind that as we're going to go through and talk about all this, that he'd already been found out by the authorities that he'd been committing this fraud. So the noose is starting to tie in. So Tony's the only person who knows what's going on here. Nobody else knows what's going on. His employees don't know what's going on. The patients don't know. Megan obviously doesn't know what's going on either. Um, okay, I'm going to go into a bit of a rant, Taylor.
Okay.
So in the interest of overextending, the family also rented a house in Celebration, Florida. So they had a house in Colchester. They also got a house in Celebration. Taylor, your reaction, I wrote this in the outline. I was like, what does Taylor know about this city? And you just reacted in the exact way that I was hoping you would react. So tell me what you know about the city.
I've been there. Holy shit. Okay, so I am of the opinion that like, and I hate to yuck people's yums, and I know I did that in the last episode with the sex party at the Turpin's house, but also I stand by if you're at a sex party and children are being abused, you should call the police. Also, like people like different sex parties, that's fine. So I apologize for yucking that yum. But I do feel like it's really hard for me to not yuck the yum of Disney adults because you're a freaking adult. Like I know adults that go to Disney World by themselves. I'm like, what is wrong with you? So I mean, I know people love it, but like I just don't understand. Like I don't even want to go with my kids. But Celebration is a city in Orlando that's like a Disney town where like they made everything look perfect. Like I went there because my in-laws just live in Orlando, and we went there on Christmas to a restaurant and walked outside, and it was like fake snowing. So it's like building this idea that you live in this like idyllic, perfect Disney town with a bunch of other fucking psychopaths because everybody wants to live in a Disney town, and it's weird as shit.
Taylor, guess what the average age of a person living in Celebration is?
45.
37.
Ugh.
How fucking stunted. Sorry, I'm not talking shit. If you're in
They are.
Celebration,
I know. Oh my
God love you.
God.
But how fucking stunted are you if that is the epitome of a life to you at 37 years old?
It's so weird. I mean, I don't know. I mean, obviously I just talked about a Disney movie and how like Cocoam was a big deal for a lot of people. So like, sure, but it's just like it's too much if we're buying a house in Celebration.
That was the overlap, by the way. Because
That
the
was it.
Pocahontas, yeah, the Pocahontas movie, the Disney movie, and then the Celebration, that's the overlap here. There's another one too. But
So I want to say
what
that
I
Jason Momoa would not live there.
nobody you'd want to socialize with would live there. Again, if you live there, God bless you.
Good luck. Good
But
luck.
yeah, overall, one of the grossest concepts I've ever come across. It is. I wrote down that it is the Ben Shapiro of cities. Just it's a case study in consumerism,
Yes.
commercialization of life, the sterilization of the human condition. It's all disgusting. Like take character and just remove it, and that's what you get with Celebration.
Oh my God, I'm like, so many people are gonna stop being my friend because they thought I was like super nice, and then they're gonna listen to this and be like, Taylor's not very nice.
Well, Taylor's honest in this situation. So yeah, to your point. So Celebration, like you said, Celebration was founded by the Walt Disney Corporation, and like we're kind of talking about here. Like you said with you, like I fucking hate Walt. Like I hate Disneyland and Disney World. The movies are great. The movies are
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm into the movies, but there's something about this town and about like the Disney culture. It just like it reminds me of like an Irish Catholic family where like the dad's a constant drunk and the kid's gay and the mom cries all the time, but they all pretend like everything's fine and normal and nobody talks about their issues at all. Like that's what Disney sounds like to me.
I mean, I guarantee you there are no therapists in Celebration.
Yeah. 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 You gotta figure out your mental health some other way there, unfortunately. But one thing I wrote here, which like is incredible. I dug this out. Did you know this, Taylor? They put speakers in the trees to make bird sounds.
In Celebration?
Yeah.
I've
Can you believe that shit?
guessed like 15 times, but I feel like it's like, what? I feel
Yeah.
like what do you are you like, ah, not like put a fucking bird feeder outside and get some birds. Peanut butter on a
Yeah.
pine cone like you do when you're a kid. You
It's
know,
not
like
perfect enough. You need to have the exact right pitch. You need to have the exact right cadence.
I'm like, so I know I told you when I was there was fake snow after when I went out of the restaurant. That was delicious. I had paella. It was really good. But I feel like I'm surprised it's not in a dome.
Yeah.
Like, I'm
Yeah.
surprised it's not like a biosphere where it's just like it's
100%.
sunny all the time and like blah blah blah.
It's 10 square miles. Can you believe
Oh my
that?
God. It's crazy.
So anyways, yeah, like there's a part of the story which is obviously going to get incredibly dark and terrible, but it's also kind of hilarious because I just want to imagine the typical resident of Celebration and then pretending they're living in this Disney universe, and then Tony comes along and does what he does there, and it just completely just like I don't know. It's not funny, but it's also like this is the real world. Like I know you want to live in a Disneyland, but there is also a real world here.
First, I'm so sorry. Can I ask you one more question?
Yes.
Um, so we are together in your new house in Austin, and I told you as soon as I got here that I already Zillowed it, because I always will Zillow your house if you give me your address. And then I sent your address to my sister so I could tell her where I was, and she also Zillowed it immediately because that's what you do. You Zillow it. And did you Zillow their house in Celebration? How much did it cost? Do you know?
So this is when I went on that deep dive a few months ago, because the house came up for sale. I think maybe 6 months ago, give or take, and it didn't sell. Obviously, the reason it came up for me because I'm on every social media group that has to do with like serial killers, and it popped up somebody saying, "Does anybody know whose house this is?" And I looked it up, and it was listed somewhere in the 4 to 500 range, whereas every other house in that area is in the 800, 900 range.
Mm,
It's a large
mm,
house.
mm. It's a little, maybe a murder house.
The the one of the worst parts about this is that the poor woman who owned the house that leased this house, the Todt family, she lives there now full time
Oh,
because she can't get rid of it.
they didn't. Oh no,
Yeah,
they leased it from her.
they leased it. Um,
Sucks for them.
yeah, yeah. So long story short, so the family is living in Celebration, starting in May of 2019. That's when they signed their lease. So May of 2019, they moved the family down to Florida. Tony stays in Colchester, Connecticut to see his patients and to work, and then he goes back and forth on the weekends. I'm going to start throwing out some dates here, but like I said, just know that everything we are talking about is between November 2019 and January 2020. It is that tight of a time frame. Okay. So on November 21st, agents raid Tony's office. They take all his files, his computers, all that other stuff that further bolster a case against him for insurance and Medicaid fraud. Uh, this blows my mind. This investigation was apparently super chill because he was kind of just like going about living his life and doing whatever he wanted. He still go back and forth to Florida and Connecticut. The agents would ask when he could meet. He'd let them know. They didn't seem to have an especially adversarial relationship at this point. To that end, he told investigators he'd be back in Connecticut on December 4th to meet with his attorney and then continue with this investigation. It was almost like they were putting things on hold to work around his schedule, which is incredible. So investigators think, okay, cool, we got a few weeks to chill. then obviously this upstanding man's going to come meet with us. And, like, I hate going super into like the privilege thing, but this one just smacked me so hard of privilege. The fact that this guy bilked the government out of tens or potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars. The government is like, well, have a great holiday. We'll see you,
Yeah.
whenever it's good for
When are
you.
you free, sir? Yeah. No.
So weird. So the next day is the last day anybody sees Tony. That's November 22nd. So that's Thanksgiving, and he is with his sister. No clue if the rest of the family is there, if they're still in Florida. All we know is that Tony was for sure there. The sister hears from the family periodically, and it was it was normal interactions with them until around December 23rd, 24th. That's when all communication stopped in a way that for her sounded unusual to the kind of relationship she had with them. On the 29th, she gets vibes. She calls the cops to do a welfare check. The family also owned another condo about an hour away from this rental house in Celebration. Again, super overextended.
Mm-hmm.
She asked the police to go check there and to check the house in Celebration for the welfare check. Tony, in one of his earlier communications to her, had told her that the entire family was super sick. That's why nobody was talking to her, basically. So police went to check, and again, they're super chill. They knocked on the door. They didn't see anything suspect. They're like, nah, it's all good. We can't really do anything else for you here. That was the way they ended it on the 29th of December.
So that's like a week after Thanksgiving. She's like, I haven't heard from him.
No, she stopped hearing from him December 23rd, 24th.
Okay.
It was a month after Thanksgiving.
Oh, December. Okay.
Yeah. So on January 6th, people started hearing from them again. Tony made some vague claim to a family member that his phone had been stolen or lost at a Starbucks, and that he had just been returned. A neighbor a condo neighbor of theirs texted Megan, letting her know that an eviction notice had been put on the condo. Megan replied, "Okay, thanks." By this point, there was eviction notice on everything. The Celebration house had an eviction notice, and the condo an hour away from the house had an eviction notice on it. Given what was going on, obviously Tony just didn't. He was in a different mental state. He was not paying bills at this point. On January 9th, the FBI is starting to get frantic about their investigation. This is the point at which they're like, this guy's not talking to anyone. He's not coming back. We should probably start doing something.
Mm-hmm.
They call the police, the local police in Florida. And the same day, Chrissy also calls the local police. And this is what Chrissy says. This is a quote. "My sister-in-law had made a comment that basically, quote, the world is ending on December 28th, and nobody has talked to them. Nobody has physically talked to my sister-in-law since the 26th of December, and my brother stopped texting us as of Monday, January 6th. She's making this call on January 9th. So I'll tell you, this statement really threw a monkey wrench for me in this situation because I don't tell my family anything. I keep all the inner workings of my mind a complete secret because I just don't welcome any questions about my life. So for me to say the world is ending on whatever date seems really fucking bizarre. Like maybe you have a different relationship. Maybe you're more vocal about the things that you would express to your family. What do you think of that?
Well, okay. I am definitely more vocal and express my feelings to my family, but that's a weird ass thing to say. Who says that?
It's so weird. It's
That
so
doesn't make
weird.
sense. I wouldn't say that to anyone. Like, what are you supposed to do with that as a
Yeah.
receiver of that information? Be like, cool, I'm gonna spend all my money now, or I don't know, or like, great, have you talked to Jesus? Like, what does that even mean? I don't know
So
what that
we
means.
so we
Do you know a
know
meteor? Yeah.
we know that Megan said this to Chrissy, to Tony's sister, because it was on a phone call. It wasn't a text, it was a phone call. And so very peculiar, very, very odd situation. And again, I'm not sure what to make of it, but it does set up some plausible deniability for Tony later on. So that's a good thing for him, I guess. A day later, this is January 10th, the police go to both the condo and the house, and they find nothing. On the 11th, they go back and again find nothing. And then on the 12th, the poor owner of this house they're leasing calls it, also asks for a welfare check. This woman sounds like a sweet landlord, actually. Like, here's what she said. This is a direct quote. "I own a property that I rent out, and I have concerns for the family. On social media, I've just sort of seen that people have not seen or heard from this family in a long, long time. And I'm trying to serve notice to evict them because they've not been paying rent. I'm concerned for the family and I'm concerned for my property. I just thought it was me they weren't communicating with because they owed me money. But in general, they've not been in contact with anybody. So she's freaking out. Like, what's going to happen to this like amazing house she has in shitty shit fuck Celebration, Florida? Like it's gonna. Are they destroying it or what?
That's good. That's some good sleuthing of her.
Yeah, yeah. At this point, federal agents are basically like, "Fuck this guy. We got to go get him." They call the local police for backup, and by this point, they had seen Tony entering the rental house and not leave. So on the 13th, they go to the house. This time, the door's unlocked, and they just let themselves in. This is all for Medicaid fraud.
Right. Not even like the fact that his family is missing. No one's heard
No,
from them. This is just
none
like
of
about the
it.
money. Yeah.
And that's the thing. Like, I don't know how the FBI works, obviously, but I imagine you don't put the financial crime people on murder investigations.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like in my mind, I'm picturing like these guys going in with calculators and pocket protectors to confront this guy for like an incredibly white collar crime, which like just frame that in your mind as well of like who the personality types are that are walking into this house.
And I think it's also that they're they didn't have like a tremendous sense of urgency, that
Yeah,
they were like, okay, we'll give you the holidays. And then now they're like, all right, it's super annoying you haven't called us, but they're not like this is a life or death situation. There's like, we need to finally do our jobs. So come to
yeah. Their investigation of the in the fraud is less than 2 months old. I mean, these things
Mhm.
drag on for years. Like it's not like a crazy urgent situation.
Yeah.
Um, but here, Taylor, this is where the nightmare fuel really begins. Okay, do me a favor.
No.
Google Tony Todt. Again,
Okay.
it's Todt, and do arrest after it. So I want you to see the most recent picture of him upon his arrest. Don't say anything. Yeah,
Okay,
you saw it.
I did.
So apparently, pretty shortly before the events of what's going to happen, Tony was in decent shape.
Mm.
So if you're listening and you're not looking at this picture, I'm going to go ahead and describe him. Then Taylor, you can describe him as well. The day he's arrested, he basically looks like Danny DeVito's Penguin from Batman Returns. Like he is again, not fat shaming anyone. He does not look normal fat. He looks like a blob of a human being. Is how I describe it, and it becomes relevant that he looks like a blob of a human being shortly when I get into the murders. So, Taylor, what do you think of his appearance?
Well, he definitely doesn't look good. I mean, and not even like his weight, but he just looks like he looks like a broken, sad human. Like he definitely looks like he's given up. I feel like that's like what I get from like his face. Like his face is like it's expressionless, you know?
Yeah,
And I mean it's not doing him any favors. He's wearing this like white jumpsuit, but like he just he looks like well, he looks real fucking guilty. That's what he looks like. I
he
don't
looks
know.
real fucking bad. He looks like somebody who has probably like been resuscitated after 17 heart attacks. Like he is not in a good way.
No.
And he's not in a good way the day the police get there. Apparently, I'll get into what he took, but police open the door to this house. Or the FBI and the police open the door to this house. They go inside, and Tony comes hobbling down the stairs. Like, again, he's not in a good way. Like, he's not like just bouncing down the stairs, like, what's going on, guys? No, like, he's
Right.
just like half aware of what's going on. I just keep picturing all the lights off in this house for some reason. And then
Yeah.
this guy coming down the stairs, just looking out of sorts with the body type that he had. It had to be surreal. They already knew something was up because they later stated that the second they opened the door, the smell of decomposition hit them, and
Oh no.
it only got worse the deeper they went into the house. They knew there was something going on here. This part again, don't go into this guy's head. It is fucking terrifying. He told the police that his kids were probably at a friend's house for a sleepover, and that his wife was upstairs sleeping. Taylor, he yelled up to his wife,
No.
like police are here, come on down. Oh, like, again, just it gets worse. It gets so much worse.
I mean,
So
I feel like yeah, I feel like he's when you say the lights were off, I feel like the lights were like always off. Like I
yeah,
feel like he hasn't like he looks like someone who hasn't been in the light, artificial or not, in a very long time.
yeah. Yeah, whenever I didn't put this in this outline, but when I originally was looking up this case, apparently what was doing when the police had showed up was that he had been sitting on the front patio of this celebration house, just like blankly staring into the distance. And then they say that when he got up to go in the house, his body movements were abnormal. Like he was not moving his body in a way that made sense to like just to stand up and walk inside the house. So like again, there's a lot going on in this guy's head, in
He
his
kind of
body.
he kind of looks like Vincent D'Onofrio when he's full of aliens in Men in Black.
Yes.
That's what he looks
Yes.
like.
That's so good. Yeah, you
Yeah.
nailed it. Yeah, that's what I
He's like,
pictured too.
and like I can also picture his fucking neighbor across the street mowing his lawn, being like, "Do to do, I live in Celebration."
What a weird fit community meeting that must have been after this happened.
The HOA
Um,
went up. Yeah.
so police go upstairs and they find what you would expect, given the nature of stories that I tell. They find incredibly badly decomposed bodies,
Ew.
except Zoe, the
Who's
4-year-old little girl. They can't find
no,
her
no.
at first. Megan was in bed with the covers pulled over her. This is so bad. They eventually, after some investigation, realize that the puddle that was at Megan's feet was Zoe.
No.
For whatever reason, she decomposed the quickest, or whatever. Like they just didn't know this girl was there. Like it was just like an amorphous blob at the foot of her
No.
mom's bed. Um,
No. How old is she?
for
Oh my God, that's like big. It's not like a tiny baby.
yeah.
What how long were they dead?
Oh, we're gonna get to that.
Oh,
Yeah, we're gonna
okay.
get to that.
Okay.
Going back to how Tony looks now and like his abnormal fat distribution and weight, what he did to Zoe is so fucking haunting to me. Like again, this is the stuff that like you just don't want to go super deep into it. He killed her by laying on her.
No.
Can you fucking believe that?
No. Oh my God. You can give your kids away. I just want to say that again. You can just leave them at like the store.
Yeah. Don't take him to the fire station, please.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh my
so
God. Poor baby.
so as far as the rest of the family, he at the very least stabbed the two boys and Megan. But an autopsy also revealed a toxic level of Benadryl in their system,
No. Well,
which
hopefully
like
they,
I didn't actually even know you could OD on Benadryl, but I guess you can OD on anything.
of course you can. Yeah, totally.
Well, there you go.
Um, well, hopefully they were asleep. Oh, that's terrible. Were they
Except
sleeping?
for at the very least, except for Zoe. And no, we know that that wasn't the case because one of the boys, Tony later stated that he was really, really nervous about because when he started stabbing him, he was like, "That's the older boy. He might actually be able to overpower me and run out of the house or escape or something." He actually like so they were conscious enough to where he thought that was a legitimate risk.
Ugh.
Yeah, we know all this because he actually confessed to the police 3 times. 3 separate instances he confessed to the police. Ultimately, they deemed this inadmissible, but whatever. We're not a legal procedure show, so he confessed to laying on his little girl until she stopped breathing. That's what happened, as far as I'm concerned. He also killed the dog, Breezy. Not sure why that was necessary, but I guess he was on a roll. Police think the murders happened around Christmas. Taylor, do you remember when I said they were found?
January something?
January 13th.
Ugh.
So think about that. Picture this guy, basically the penguin, rambling around a house for 3 weeks
Oh my God.
with 4 corpses plus his dead dog, eating
What?
Popeye's chicken and just sitting there. Like,
And people are like knocking on the door, right?
yeah, people are asking where I mean, they've done like at this point 3 or 4 welfare checks on him as well.
Oh my God. This is another point from our last episode. I feel like you should look in your neighbor's windows.
Guys, please don't do that.
I'm just gonna say, like, maybe you need to sometimes. Like, just like take a peek, and if things look like weird, then call the police. Like, I
Be a
don't want
little
us.
curious.
Yeah, be like a smidge curious. Like if things seem weird, just like, I don't know, pop in. Maybe like bring some cookies so you can later be like, oh, I was bringing you cookies, but like
Yeah.
not make it weird. But like I feel like you should look in your neighbor's windows.
Taylor, like this is the part of this story that I think I like dwelled on the most was you're in this house with your dead family rotting above you for weeks.
No,
It's so
no.
crazy to me. To the point where one of the kids is a puddle of sinew. Like it's absolutely unbelievable.
Oh my God, it's awful.
So Tony's side of the story changes after he confessed. It seemed at first, he did the confessing, then later on he said that his wife did it. Then later said that it was some part of some plan he and his wife had to stave off the apocalypse. It's worth noting that nothing I read mentioned religion or spirituality at all with these folks. All we have is what Tony says now and what Megan told Chrissy about the world ending on December 28th, which is
Did
interesting given when investigators think they died.
Wait, did he kill them on December 28th?
They don't know because the bodies were so decomposed. They just
Oh,
assume it was in this window of time around Christmas time.
oh my God.
Yeah. So according to Tony, Megan had baked a pie that had a shitload of Benadryl in it and apparently fed it to the kids. Then they took a bunch of Benadryl. Then she took a bunch of Benadryl herself, and then also he says she stabbed herself in the abdomen. Given her previous
Yuck.
statement, yeah, I thought that too. But given the previous statement about how the world is going to end, there's part of this story that I'm like, could this have been a thing? It's there's more evidence around Tony having done all of this than there is about Megan. All we have about Megan is that she was in constant pain because of Lyme disease, and she did make this statement that is verified that the world is going to end on the 28th. That's all we really know.
So like, I don't know, this reminds me of like it would be a lot if he was like secretly convincing her that the world was going to end and she needed to kill her children. I feel like other people would know that she was having that experience.
And nobody said anything. Nobody.
Yeah,
They were like Megan's normal, like to the point where the red flag of all this to Chrissy, Tony's sister, was I talk to these people all the time. Like we have a
right.
great relationship, and now I just
Hmm.
don't hear from them at all. So I don't know. I'm leaving. It's not enough for me to say Megan did this,
Hmm.
but it's just another weird component of this.
Yeah. No,
Um,
I don't think she did. I think he did it.
yeah, when you think about like the axe dropping of the fraud investigation with the evictions, and also the fact that at this point it goes probably without saying, but he'd actually exhausted every financial resource he had at that time.
Hmm.
He had nothing left. Like there was nothing left. Like it was over. Like it was all done. And then, yeah, ultimately, what ended up happening was his trial lasted for only 6 days.
Good.
He was hit with 4 life sentences plus 1 year for killing the dog Breezy. He obviously appealed, and obviously that's not going anywhere. Um, there is a there's a random fact here that I didn't actually put into the storyline because I don't know where to place it. So in the 1980s, Tony's parents were married. They lived together, like they weren't a divorce couple or anything. The dad's name is Robert, and apparently Robert hired what kind of sounds like probably like a slightly mentally disabled person, paid him $800 to kill his wife,
Oh no.
Tony's mom.
Did he do it?
Yeah. So the guy shot her in the face in the kitchen of their home directly in front of a 4-year-old Tony.
Well, I don't think that's random. I think that fucks you up for life.
But like, by the way, she lived. I don't know how she lived, and apparently she like really loved Robert because she was like on his side for the trial, which is incredible. He ended up ultimately going to jail for 5 years, and Tony and him essentially had no relationship after that until now, until this happened with Tony, and now him and Robert are now back pen paling each other and having
Oh,
conversations.
because they're wife killers.
Like what?
Son, you fell so close to the tree. I'm just so jealous that you succeeded in killing your wife.
I don't.
It's not irrelevant. Like, I think that's really a big fucking deal.
But is it relevant in the sense that now, like, there's a common stripe running through this family
Yes,
of, yeah,
that is absolutely unbelievable fucking trauma for a child. Like, can you that ruins your life, clearly.
Well,
And I think
yeah,
I think we can direct thread that.
that's
Really,
what
we'll
happened.
make it red yarn and direct thread that to him killing his family because if you see that, I mean, fuck.
Tony draws that comparison himself as well of this did something to me. I don't know what, but it's just like I have such a hard time excusing like finding reasons to excuse behavior like this. Like it's
No, I mean, don't kill your family. That's number one. That's not an excuse, but I feel like it definitely contributed. And like I also feel like he never went to a therapist.
yeah, yeah. And he never talked about his problems. He never told his wife what he was. I'm totally editorializing this and making an assumption. I would assume that if he didn't think that he was in a position where he had to commit all this fraud to sustain the lifestyle that he and the kids and Megan had become accustomed to, he probably wouldn't have done this. I think that this was a man at the complete end of his rope. He given up on life. I mean, that's the part of it. Like again, the picture that you see of him, that is a man who gave up on all of life, all of it.
Well, I mean, this is exactly what a family annihilator does. Like when you see a family annihilator, I think John List, and it's exactly what he did. Is he was like, there's too much debt. I don't know what to do. I have to kill my family. I'm in too
Yeah,
deep, you know?
yeah,
Like I can't take this family out of this nice house. I have to kill them.
yeah. Yeah, it feels like that is a common thread that runs through all of this. But yeah, that is so the reason I picked Mai Tai is because if you don't know this, you can only drink in one place in Disneyland, and it's Club 33. And Club 33 has this like old-timey vibe to it. And you have to be like invited or something to go there. Again, Disney's so fucking stupid. Like
It is
it's
like another reason not to go. I'm just gonna
can you
add that to
imagine?
my
You have to be
unbelievable list of reasons
sober.
not to fucking go. Yeah.
You have to be sober while all these kids are screaming and running around. It
And you're
sounds like
standing
hell
in
on earth.
lines, just in lines, and it's
And you've
humid.
also paid thousands of dollars to do this.
I feel like we did this last week when we yelled about the Turpins going there, but like also it's been really rainy in California, and I saw pictures of people going to Disneyland in the rain.
Ugh,
It's like, what is
Taylor,
wrong with you?
Taylor, if we ever are able to get like advertisers and Disney or Disney Cruise Line decides to advertise on us, we're gonna have to take this episode down.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% going if they're paying for it. I
Okay.
did go one time because I had friends who worked there and they paid for it. Like it was free.
Yeah, I mean that's worth it, and only
Yeah.
that. But this Club 33, all they have are old timey drinks. They don't do anything modern, and so it's like
That's great.
Sazeracs and Mai Tais and stuff like that.
I
I'm
love it
telling you,
there.
yeah, the vibe inside is very yeah, it's very you, Taylor. It's very
I
like
love a speakeasy.
flapper retro.
Yeah, I want to open a closet door and be in a bar.
Fuck
Yes,
yeah,
100%. Yes. Put it behind
and
a
so
bookcase. Oh my God, I would die. That's so fun.
hell yeah. So that's why the we're doing Mai Tais today. But that's my story. It's it is really troubling,
It's
but
so
it happened.
sad. It's so sad that people like it's I mean, I feel terrible for the kids and for the wife, and I think all of that, like her doing it stuff is bullshit. I think he
Yeah,
just wants to like, you know, maybe get one less life sentence or whatever, but like that's absolute bullshit. There's no way that she did that. I mean, I feel like he was maybe I'm sure as she was saying shit at the fan that things were not great in their relationship, you know?
yeah.
She's like, "Oh, hey, hon, the FBI is at the door for you." That's the beginning of something bad.
I don't even think it didn't even go that far. I think that was like the barrier that he created with them living in Celebration while he's doing all this in Connecticut.
Oh, right, right. Ugh, ugh.
Yeah. Maybe that's why they
Man.
moved to Celebrate. That's why they even moved to
Yeah.
Florida was because he was like, I have to create a physical barrier between, God, what a cluster.
Well, that's terrible. Thanks for sharing.
Next week, I will be sharing an incredibly happy story.
Really, really?
No,
Oh, because it's like,
of
really?
course not.
Because next next week mine is a love story, and I'm just so sorry that it's not gonna be funny, but I just can't, and I have already cried about it. So, it's a love story that didn't work out. So I just can't talk about it. But also, don't stop recording because I feel like we don't have any banter at the end of our show. We need to add banter in.
I will keep recording.
We need like a sign off and something funny to say when we leave. So I feel like, I don't know, like look in your neighbor's windows and
Do you want to
I
do
don't,
it?
no, we need maybe to think about it more, but I just don't want to like abruptly end it.
Okay.
I don't want to sit here in silence, but we're gonna work on an ending. This is episode 3, but we're not just gonna cut it off anymore. We're gonna add
Is
more
this?
banter. We're gonna be funnier. These are my promises to the world.
I feel like my stories aren't funny though.
Well, you're the one who picked comedy as like our number one thing, so I feel like we should adjust that.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm looking forward to next week to learn more about this love story. And I'm going to bring you another horrible, horrible story that will hopefully curl your toes and make you envision horrible things happening to people that probably don't deserve it.
Great. I can't
Yeah.
wait. I can't
Yeah.
wait.
More red flags, more red flags, more relationships that were doomed to fail. It's all coming up.
Oh, wait. I have one more thing to say while we're still recording. So, Faris, one of my best friends, Nicole, she was like, she texted me and she was like, I have to tell you something. And I was like, okay. She was like, so when I looked at your stuff for Doomed to Fail and I saw DTF, I thought about something else. I didn't think Doomed to Fail when I saw that acronym. And I was like, I know, Nicole, that's the joke. And she was like, okay, good,
That's
just making sure.
that was intentional. That was
And
absolutely
it was so, I
intentional.
was like, thanks for having my back. And she was like, of course.
That was absolutely intentional. I will also say that Taylor's the one who asked for the DTF logo. Yeah, so it was
Yeah.
all you're doing.
So cool.
Well, we'll go ahead and sign off. Thanks everyone for listening, and we'll be back next week.
See you next week. Thanks, Mars.
Bye.
All right, everyone. That was episode 3, part 2. It's getting confusing to do all these parts, but I really am excited that we're able to re-release them for you in these smaller bites and gives you a chance to kind of revisit some of our past episodes. I think our first like 26 or so episodes, we did the double stories, so we'll have a whole year of re-releases before we have to figure out what other bonus content you might want. We did do that one interview with Marcos Antonio Hernandez, who wrote Where They Burn Books, They Also Burn People. So if you haven't listened to that as a bonus, please do. And then also let us know if you want something else as a bonus. We're going to do one later this year where Faraz and I tell you a little bit about ourselves. Like, who are we? Why are we doing this? How do we know each other? Things like that. That was a suggestion from a listener. But yeah, let us know. We'd love to do something fun and creative and all of that stuff. Please, if you haven't already, please share. The best way for people to find new podcasts is to get a recommendation. So if you like it, please let someone know. We really would love the support. If you have questions, concerns, comments, literally anything, we're at doomedtofailpod@gmail.com. And thanks again. We really enjoy doing this, and we're glad you're here with us. Thanks.